What is up, guys? Wrestling Premiere is here. It's about damn time I do some WrestleManias. You know, I wanted to do these for a while now, and I can do them anytime I want, honestly, but I just like doing it during WrestleMania season, so there's that. You guys want 25 next, which I found odd, but I can attribute that to there being a bunch of videos on 19 and 21. Might do them anyways, but for now, let's focus on the other WrestleManias. This one in particular was squished in between 17 and 19, and to the fact that there was only one outstanding match. Yeah, it makes sense that the event as a whole isn't spoken about. The weird thing about this is the fact that the WWF turned into the WWE only a month and a half later. There was the brand split that was coming up, and the roster was stacked. In terms of star power, no other year comes close. Nada. And the whole vibe in the WWF at the time feels totally different to what went down 4 months later. And it's like a different year in a way. HBK was there, the NWO was gone, Austin's gone, Eddie Guerrero's back. So much change went down in the year of 2002. With that said, let's get into it. WrestleMania 18 was held in the Sky Dome in Toronto, Ontario, Canada on March 17, 2002. 68,237 were in attendance to witness history going down. The buy rate itself took a bit of a hit. You know, WrestleMania X8 drew over 1 million in the buy rates, whereas this event drew 860,000. The theme songs for the event were Tear Away by Drowning Pool and Superstar by Saliva. Whoa, that's so 2002. Also, a video game for the Nintendo GameCube was named after this WrestleMania, and damn, was it forgettable. Compared to the other GameCube titles, it was pretty weak. And again, it was the first kind of WWF game on the console, so there's that. Enough talk, let's get into it. Right when the show began, Saliva performed the song Superstar, which you might be familiar with if you watched the first Fast and Furious movie. You know, more than you can afford, pal scene. And it's definitely a memorable WrestleMania performance. It's probably the first one that pops in my head when I think, oh, WrestleMania performances. The first match was for the Intercontinental Championship. Rob Van Dam challenges William Regal for the gold. Regal at this point was the biggest cheater in the entire WWF. He was synonymous with the brass knuckles, whereas RVD was one of the most over wrestlers on the entire roster. He flirted with the main event for a bit, and I should know this was his first WrestleMania. He had attended WrestleMania 3, but as a fan. Van Dam quickly brought the fight in the early going, inflicting damage on the champ. He was frantically searching for his weapon, but then RVD kicked that out of his hands and almost hit the frog splash, but Regal moved out of the way and began taking control. He didn't accomplish much during this juncture of the match, as Van Dam was still fast and furious. Regal catches him with a little takedown, hits the suplex, and the pace was finally slowed down. The challenger didn't even stay down for long, hitting a back body drop and some rights. Regal once again didn't remain on the defense for long, as he caught RVD with a neck breaker. Because of the unorthodox offense, Regal's mouth was busted. Van Dam had his moments to shine, but wasn't the outright aggressor. He attempts to pick up the pace, hits a few moves, but the champion stops him dead in his tracks, and damn what an overhead suplex that was. The way RVD sells always impresses me. I just love watching his matches due to the fact that he sells these moves as if they're death or something. At this point, Regal decides to bring back the Nux, but the ref took notice. Oh wait, there's another one in his hand. Regal's too occupied, and boom, he gets a kick in the face. Van Dam goes to the high end district and hits the 5-star frog splash. 1, 2, 3, good match. Why? It was quick, didn't waste time, and served its purpose. Do I wish it was longer? Oh yes, most certainly. RVD was fun to watch, and it's cool seeing him capture the belt for the first time here. I feel RVD and Jeff are synonymous with this version of the title. Maybe Christian too, so there's that. Yeah, good opener. It did its job, and that was to get the fans hyped up for the show. In the back, Lillian Garcia interviewed Christian regarding the events of Monday. For some reason, he turned on DDP. You know, he was all in on his little program. Christian made it seem like he was progressing well or whatever. Then he just turned on him on the final Raw. He said that he doesn't need him anymore and took a jab at Toronto, calling it a second-rate city. He was ready to reclaim the championship of Europe, and what is that face? Next match is for the European Championship. Christian, who relocated to Tampa getting boost from the crowd, faces Diamond Dallas Page for the gold. That was a smart tactic. They were cheering him, but after that, not a chance. DDP, his push was botched, but we already know that. This was his first official WrestleMania appearance, I should note. He appeared at WrestleMania 6 as the chauffeur for Rhythm and Blues because it was his pink Cadillac. Right out of the gate, Christian goes on the attack. Page bounces back with a gut buster of sorts before brawling on the outside. Story of this one was simple. Christian used DDP for a while and got a title shot. In the ring, Christian takes back control, throws the champ onto the ropes, cornering him. Didn't last long though because DDP's back in. He screws up by wasting time showboating. This leads to the abdominal stretch. The challenger's looking to wear him out. He goes up top and ends up landing on his own back. And once both men get up, DDP hits the sit-down powerbomb, which gets him a near fall. A nice little countering sequence. Unprettier, cutter, none of them were to be, and instead it was the inverted DDT. DDP kicked out, which greatly angered Christian, but it didn't matter because a few seconds later, Diamond Dallas Page hit the diamond cutter. 1, 2, 3, there it was. After the match, DDP grabbed the mic and praised Christian for not losing his temper after losing in front of 67,000 people, millions at home. And all of a sudden, Caillou entered Christian's soul and he's throwing a temper tantrum again. Hey, just there. I didn't expect much, and compared to the first match, it was certainly weaker. That's what I thought. It's not bad, it just wasn't that much of a big deal. In the back, Jonathan Coachman interviewed the Grey One ahead of his match with Hollywood Hogan, and regarding Hulkamania running wild on him, The Rock wanted it. He wanted Hogan in all his glory tonight. He asked Coach if he said his prayers, to which he responded, "I've been busy." So The Rock asks the crowd if they'd like to see the Coach say his prayers, and Coach is like, "What up, G? Just wanted to give you a quick shout out." And The Rock was anything but impressed. He's like, "What up, G?
You get out of here, you sick freak!"
And then he spoke about Hogan again. He asked the Immortal One, like, what you gonna do when the Rock One's riled on you? He knew damn well that the fans will be chanting their name, and then he said that Hogan will smell what the Rock is cooking. Cool interview. Not my favorite Rock WrestleMania interview. That's Act 3. That promo in itself is one of my favorites of all time. The next match is for the Hardcore Championship. Goldust challenges Maven. So the belt was under the 24/7 rule at this point. This night in particular is actually one of the more memorable ones in the history of the title. Maven was on Tough Enough only 5 months earlier, yet was on the WrestleMania card, defending the title in a singles match nonetheless. It took Kofi Kingston and Dolph Ziggler 12 years to even have a singles match at WrestleMania, just comparing them. Right out of the game, Goldust attacked Maven. He elbowed the champ on top of the barricade and brought out the weapons. He brought out a cookie sheet, trash can, and Goldust ended up discovering a golden shovel, which was probably Triple H's. Used it in a unique way before launching the champ into a trash can corner. They knocked down each other with weapons, and all of a sudden, Spike Dudley runs in there and steals the Hardcore Championship. Crash Holly follows suit. Goldust gets angry, and they all make their way to the back. Can't really rate this one. It literally lasted 3 minutes. It was more of an angle in my eyes, at least. Also, it wasn't the last we've seen of the Hardcore title. Next up, Drowning Pool performed Tearaway, which seems to really suit Stephanie McMahon's character at the time. You know, I don't care about anyone else but me, or whatever. Oh, who am I kidding? I know the entire song. I believe the lead singer of the band, you know, he kind of resembles Bray Wyatt. He died 4 months after this, and they had to replace him. I'm not sure, but some believe the band never recovered from Dave Williams' passing. This wasn't the last song WWF had from Drowning Pool. In the back, Crash and Spike go at it. Al Snow with a damn cart crashes into a bunch of boxes. Spike knocks down Crash, and Hurricane from out of nowhere comes in and steals the belt. The next match was between Kurt Angle and Kane. To me, this match is, oh, hey, we value you, but we don't have anything for you. Before the match, Angle said that if he won his Olympic gold medal like Canada's figure skating team did in February, if he won it by whining and crying, he'd shoot himself. Kane doesn't let him finish speaking, and Angle realizes he's got to find a way to steal the advantage, so he strikes Kane with the ring bell. Kane was already hurting the head, as the commentary stated, and the Olympic gold medalist at this point was 100% on offense. He takes his eyes off the big red machine, and so he fights back. Kane at this point, he wasn't really messing around. Angle, on the other hand, was quick and elusive, catching Kane with a belly-to-belly. He was delivering shots to the head, which, like I said, was a red target. Rights and kicks, back body drops to the head. He was attempting to wear down his opponent, but it wasn't working. Kane goes for the suplex, but Angle, the wrestling technician, escapes and hits a hat trick of Germans. Despite this, Kane kicked out. So Angle goes up top and successfully hits the clothesline. He was so proud of it that he decides to go for it again, but like many movie sequels, fails to deliver. Both men exchange rights. Kurt loses, of course, and has to rely on unethical shots. Big boot, comeback from Kane. He's starting to gain momentum. This leads to the chokeslam, and it would have been it, but Angle put his arm on the ropes. Kane attempts the tombstone, but Angle tries pulling his mask, and this leads to the Angle slam. 1, 2, no. I honestly thought that was it there. The straps are down, and it's time for the ankle lock. Kane shouting in agony. Angle's trying to apply even more pressure, but Kane managed to reach the ropes. He refuses to let go and ends up screwing himself when the bigger red monster hits the enziguri. Then he goes up top, but Angle catches him with a super belly-to-belly. Crowd popped for that one. Angle goes for the slam, while Kane counters looking for the choke slam. A little rollover leads to a pinfall attempt with Angle's foot on the rope, and he steals it. Again. I thought I wasn't feeling this match initially, but they won me over. They really did. The crowd was into it. The near falls were convincing. I really thought at one point Angle had the match won, but it wasn't the case. In the back, the Hurricane is hiding from potential enemies and ends up in the Godfather's hoses locker room. And he decides, oh, I'm going to pull out something. And Jerry Lawler's like, I told you he got superpowers, and the perv gets caught. Godfather goes after him, and the broomstick, well, definitely sticks out in my mind as a memorable moment from the show. No pun intended. The next match was no disqualification. Ric Flair meets The Undertaker. I really love this story. Ric Flair's essentially dragged into this match, and Taker was just being a douche for no real reason. He wanted to get personal. I talked about some of it in this video. If you're interested, you could check it out. But anyways, Ric Flair was in a slump of sorts mentally at this point. I'll get into that later. The Undertaker was 9-0, and it was Flair's first WrestleMania since his title match with Randy Savage in 1992 at WrestleMania 8. The bell rings and right out of the gate, the dirtiest player in the game delivers right. At one point, it was like he forgot what he was doing, and Taker had yet to muster up any sort of offense. Flair goes for an aerial move, and this is where he messes up. Big Evil's beating him from pillar to post, and the commentary team was reminding everyone of the Nature Boy's bad back. They were striking each other in the corner with vengeful intentions. Taker was busted, and basically the blood got him all riled up. It was strike galore, basically, and yes, Flair was busted open as a result of this. It's about as likely as you blinking in the next 10 seconds, so there's that. Despite all the damage he took, the Nature Boy still had some fight in him. There was still something there, but the Undertaker was really trying to beat out all that resiliency. Like JR said, Flair was bleeding like a stuck pig, and that superplex really looked rough. Something about it was very different compared to the others. It likely would have gotten the Undertaker the victory, but he decided to continue the fight. Taker was fixated on two body parts, he had the back and the forehead, and anything else was a bonus. He once again had an opportunity to win it, but nope, he prefers to continue. It was a massacre. He was showing signs of fighting back, such as moving out of the way, delivering chops, but it was still Taker's match to lose. As he goes for the old school, Flair drags him off the top rope because he wasted too much time and ends up paying. Again, Flair's trying to build momentum, but all it takes is one move to stop him dead in his track. Flair evaded another attack and whacked Big Evil with a lead pipe, and yes, he was busted open. It clearly wore him down, but Taker quickly got back on track. Nature Boy brings in a sign, and in the ring, he's hitting a flurry of punches. Taker grabs him by the throat, but the 16-time champ low blows him and locks in the figure 4. The fans are cheering, and it seemed like things were bad. Lil Nate then makes the count, and all of a sudden, Taker sets up as if a demon enters his soul. Memorable image there. He hits the choke slam. Lil Nate ends up getting involved, telling him to stop, but he's thrown into the turnbuckle, and all of a sudden Flair's back up. He bounces Taker off the ropes, and from out of nowhere, Double A, Arn Anderson, delivered a spine buster on the Undertaker. Flair goes for the cover. 1, 2, no. He ends up getting busted open, but Flair makes a save with a chair, repeated chair shots, but it's all for nothing as Big Evil knocks him down. Taker goes for the last ride, but decides to go for the tombstone instead. 1, 2, 3. That's all she wrote. Right after the match, he clotheslined the living hell out of Charles Robinson, and so he's 10-0 at WrestleMania. Another memorable image right there. Wow, that was really good. It felt old school and rough. They didn't execute many moves and instead opted to tell a story. It was really enjoyable and fun to see. During his short-lived podcast, Ric Flair spoke about the match. I quote, "I would have loved to have worked with him when I was like 35 or something like that. I could have really given him a match, but this worked out pretty good," Flair added. "He sold the crap out of stuff for me. That's what got the match over because nobody thought I would be able to do anything with him. When he let me get him down on the ground, he let me get on him good. Mark carried me, but we did have a hell of a match. I eventually got comfortable and that turned out to be a hell of a match, and I think everybody liked it. I mean, once again, I'm 59 in 2008, so in 2002, I'm what, 54? I don't know, but we really did have a hell of a match. It was just great. Once again, Mark carried me. Like I said, I really liked the match, and if Rock Hogan didn't deliver the way it did, no doubt in my mind it's the match of the night. Funny enough, The Undertaker was actually asked if he would like to wrestle Flair or RVD. Had he chosen RVD, I personally believe the entire landscape of the WWE would be very different. That's my personal opinion. In the back, Booker T was interviewed over the shampoo thing and how Edge believed he lacked intelligence. Booker offered his rebuttal, stating that he ranked number 1 in SATs. He won an award on his high school thesis on the theory of relativity. Cole corrected him on something that Booker mispronounced, and he got all angry. He promised that Edge will be the new spokesperson of the new book called I Just Got My Ass Kicked at WrestleMania. The next match was between Booker T and Edge. Two massive talents, especially Booker being placed in a feud over shampoo. Are you serious? Booker T was finding his footing in the WWF and it took a while. Edge, on the contrary, was the hometown hero. The WWF was starting to push him hard, and I really like this iteration of his due to how energetic and fast he was. He had some awesome matches during this time period. Of course, we gotta mention the fact that Edge attended WrestleMania 6 in the same stadium. Rough collar and elbow tie-up to start things off. Slight dropkick leads to the facebuster. Near fall there. Flapjack from Booker leads to him taking control. Missile dropkick, and I just love the camera flashes. Makes it seem much more bigger than it is. Makes it seem like a huge spectacle. Edge was trying to fight, but ended up getting a spine buster, which wasn't enough for the victory. Booker goes up again, but Edge pushes the ropes and hits a Hurraperv. Once both men recover, Edge begins his comeback. Spinning heel kick, the clothesline. Booker almost puts a stop to it by hitting the scissors kick, but fails and takes an Edge-o-matic. He goes up top and hits the spin kick, but again, Booker kicks out. Nice rope from Booker leads to a catapult. Edge goes for the spear, but it's not to be, and it was time for the biggest spinner-rooney ever. Booker hits the scissors kick, but again, Edge kicks out. As the 5-time champ goes for the bookend, Edge reverses and hits a spear. 1, 2, no, it ain't it. So he randomly decides to go for the spinner Rooney, and it was off. A nice little sequence from both men leads to the execution. 1, 2, 3, not bad. It was clear that they were lacking in time, so they tried to make the most out of it, and in my eyes, they succeeded. The match initially was going to be hair versus hair, but it was scrapped, and they decided to have a random ass feud involving shampoo. What's next? A cup of coffee? Oh, that's already been done, I'm sorry. In the back, the coach questioned the Hurricane's character after the stick incident, and Helms was angry over the thought of someone questioning him and thinking of him as the Hurraperv. Then the sidekick fools him, whacks him with a frying pan in order to steal the hardcore championship from him. Random stuff, but the Hurraperv was down. Okay, it's time to get into some serious business. The next match was between Stone Cold Steve Austin and Scott Hall. This one is weird to me. Stone Cold was the hottest thing in early 2002, but they decided to saddle him with Scott Hall, who wasn't into the whole thing. He had other issues in his life to deal with, and because of this, JR claims Chris Benoit was fuming. He didn't think Scott Hall belonged on the card because WrestleMania is usually reserved for the best. Also, I gotta mention the fact that the original plans were Austin Benoit, but Chris wasn't ready yet, and plus, I think regardless, it would have had Steve face Scott Hall in the end, regardless of the fact that Benoit was there or not. Initially, Scott Hall was doing well, he was recovering from substance issues, but being brought back to the WWF only seemed to have returned those problems. Anyways, Austin was pissed off over Nash being at ringside, but quickly brought the fight. Hall really struggled in the early going, and it was so bad that he couldn't take his vest off. The crowd was loudly chanting "what" along with every turnbuckle bump. Hall goes to the outside, and Nash takes a beating. In the ring, Scott finally bounces back with a kick and a clothesline, and he proceeds to corner the Texas Rattlesnake, all while Nash is on the other side, exposing the turnbuckle. This idea worked out pretty well for the NWO, as Austin takes the bump and goes to the outside, where Nash applies additional damage. And so Scott Hall finally has control. He's running down the Texas Rattlesnake with fall-away slams, shots to the neck. He delivered this clubbing clothesline that I thought was cool, but again, Austin kicked out. Nash was still getting his shots in. They were all over him, and even when the ref comes in to warn Hall, Nash runs in and strikes. Austin managed to buy some time with a spinebuster, and once both men recover, Hall delivers some of those strikes, and damn, he knew how to maximize the sound of those. I love him. All of a sudden, Steve hits the stunner, and as he goes for the cover, Kevin Nash drags the ref out of the ring. They saw Austin, but when they brought in the chair, he escaped and he stunned them. Again, he goes to the cover, but there's no ref. A couple of seconds later, ref runs in there, and damn, look how smooth the little slide was. Nash delivers an elbow like that, and the ref is knocked down. Once they recover, Hall tries to go for the outsider's edge, but Austin tosses him over the top rope. The refs ended up ejecting Nash out of the match, and in the ring, Hall hits the stunner. 1, 2, no, not enough. So he goes for another one, but bumps into the exposed turnbuckle, and boom, stunner. Still not enough, so Austin hits another stunner, and by God, what a sell that was. 1, 2, 3. Not gonna lie, I enjoyed that more than I expected. Maybe it's because I'm invested in both characters. Maybe that's why. The crowd ended up being into it by the end, and you can't tell me this match didn't have some awesome moments. The ref slide in the Nash elbow was just hilarious because it was all for nothing. Like, that could be a little meme over there, honestly. And that stunner is what legends are made of. I think it's one of the greatest stunner sells of all time. On Grilling JR back in July, Jim Ross spoke about Stone Cold's mindset towards WrestleMania 18. And I quote, "I heard about the writing team saying, we're going to do the heat thing with Austin. We're going to beat him with Scott. I said, you're what? What's the logic behind that? And I said, have you communicated that to the talent? Oh, no, we haven't said a word, just between us and Vince. So I go to Vince, are we going to beat Austin at WrestleMania? Well, I'm thinking about it. I said, I think it's a bad decision, because that's the way Vince and I communicated one-on-one. He didn't want both. I didn't challenge him to the point of being obnoxious. I just said, I think that's the wrong decision to make. I think it's the wrong decision to make, and I think it's going to piss off Steve, because he knows he can't have the match he wants to have at WrestleMania. We had guys on our roster that deserve that opportunity with Steve at WrestleMania. To work with Austin at WrestleMania is going to help you get over whether you win or lose. So you're telling me Steve was going to lose this one? Oh, man, that would have been bad. Just because of the fact that Scott Hall ended up doing nothing, and it would have prevented us from seeing the stunner itself. But also because of the fact that Austin was misused. Like, he deserved somebody much better than a lost Scott Hall. Preferably Ric Flair. I mean, it was clear that Hogan wasn't going to happen because politics is going to politics. But my idea, and this is just me, I'd swap Taker and Austin, have him team up with Kane to face the Outsiders, and insert Angle in the main event. Could have been better, maybe, but then again, it could have been worse. I understand Stone Cold Steve Austin's frustration towards the WWF at this point. He ended up walking out the next night, too, I should know. But yeah, it's reasonable. They should have gave him somebody else. Somebody that wasn't Scott Hall. Scott Hall was in a bad mindset at this point also. He had other issues to deal with in his life, so let's this match. I didn't think it was bad, but someone like Austin needed like a 4-star caliber match or something, right? They then showed footage of Access. Booker T complaining about not being featured in Just Bring It was a highlight, and why in the hell did I have a replica of Stacey Keebler's ass and legs? The Ruthless Aggression era, the Attitude era, stuff was so damn different. The next match is a fatal 4-way tag team match for the WWF Tag Team Championships. The Dudley Boyz, the APA, and the Hardys challenged Billy and Chuck for the titles. Saliva performed the Dudleys' theme song. Stacy went up there for a few seconds, and the match itself was unofficially the swan song for the Dudleys and the Acolytes, as only 1 week later they'd be separated. The King was perving it up on commentary as expected, and Billy and Chuck really felt out of their element. The other teams had been together for several years up to this point, whereas they were only a team for 3 months. The APA were impatient starting off the match. Also, I should note it was 4 corner rules. It took a while for Chuck to get into it. Farouk and Bradshaw were quite aggressive compared to the others. The APA were dominant during this juncture of the match. The action spills all over the place, and Bradshaw hit a mean-looking clothesline from hell, but the Dudleys caught him with the 3D, and so the APA were out of the match. The Hardys enter, double team Bubba and Devon. They get irritated, so a table is brought in, but it wasn't used just yet though. In the ring, Jeff hits the Whisper in the wind, and just as he goes for the Swanton, Stacy's on the apron. Jeff shakes his hips along with her and smacks her ass. Hell, he even kissed her at one point. This leads to a double team from Billy and Bubba. Bubba was really dominant, Jeff was really struggling. He was getting bounced around the ring with no end in sight. Hell, even Devon got him some of the Daredevil. The whole Bubba on offense thing lasted for so damn long. Matt had to get involved to put some sort of stop to it, and Devon knew that Jeff was going to tag, so he prevented it from happening. It really wasn't working for the Hardys until Jeff countered into an inverted DDT. The crowd's rallying him on, and Matt is finally in. He builds momentum, that is until Bubba backdropped him. He misses up top, and Matt hits the leg drop, but Bubba kicks out. They're preparing the Waza when Devon gets pushed off the top and through the table. Bubba on the ring takes a twist of fate, and 2 remain. All King could worry about was if Stacy could stay around there. At this point in time, Team Extreme was damn near unstoppable. They hit the finishing combo, but Billy hit the famouser. 1, 2, no, the match continues. So Billy decides to blast Jeff with a gold, and that's enough. The match itself did kind of drag, and it was my least favorite of the night, but it's not like it sucked. It just should have gone down a bit different, maybe a bit shorter. Also, it would have been cool to see the Hardys win the tag titles at WrestleMania. It would have been an awesome visual, but I guess the WWE planned to split them anyways, or just wanted to push Billy and Chuck. But yeah, it probably would have been much cooler to see the Hardys hoist the titles in the air. Probably would have been remembered much more fondly. In the back, Hall and Nash wanted to make sure that Jabroni gets it, but Hogan told him to stay put. Why? Because he wanted to prove to himself that he can do it. Meanwhile, Mighty Molly's running off, trying to hide from potential challengers, when a half door knocks her out, and it's Christian. He goes for the cover to become the new hardcore champion. The next match was between Hollywood Hulk Hogan and The Rock. I can't really describe how hype I am, well, was past tense, to watch this again. Last time I watched it 2 years ago, it was fun, and no doubt I will enjoy it again. Spoiler alert, I did enjoy it. The build up to the match compared to what went down is so damn different. I mean, Rock was placed in an ambulance for the NWO to crash into. Hogan wanted the fans to appreciate him again, but was angry over the fact that they turned on him. It was, of course, supposed to be Austin Hogan, but they couldn't come up with a finish, I guess. This was the next best thing, possibly for the better. The way The Rock improvised, I doubt it would have went the same way. Like, it could have gone down much terribly between Austin and Hogan. It's just a thought. Also, I strongly considered swapping both the main event and this, as I wanted to end the video on a very high, but it felt weird. I might do in the future, though, if you guys want it. The crowd treated Hogan like a babyface. The young fans were all grown up and were so nostalgic. And right before the match even began, it was electric. It was unreal. No other WrestleMania crowd was as loud as Toronto, in my opinion, up to this point. Maybe ever. The bell rings and it's on. Collar and elbow tie up. Hogan easily pushes the Great One away, and that's enough to generate an entire crowd's response. Again, he delivers yet another side tackle, and look at that damn crowd. Shots to the gut from Hogan, and he delivers the rights. A little clothesline excites the fans, but Rock wasn't going to sit down and take all that, so he delivers a forearm. He trash talks the Immortal One and delivers a slew of punches to send Hogan right out of there. Fans at this point start booing by the sounds of it, and The Rock was dominant during this juncture of the match. He almost hit the Rock bottom, but was blocked, and now the fans were happy. Hogan with several elbows, a little rake, clothesline in the corner, of the commentary team were really selling this moment. It didn't need selling, but they still did it anyways. When The Rock fought back, you'd think he was the heel and Hogan's the babyface. He locks in the abdominal stretch before going for the roll-up, the back scratch in there. Hell, he was even biting The Rock at one moment. But again, the Grey One fights back and the fans are jeering. He then ran into a choke slam. I gotta mention this again, the crowd was simply unreal, and as for the action, Rock was trying to build momentum but was thrown over the top rope. Hogan began fighting dirty, all while Mike Chioda was warning him. He wasted too much time, and this almost led to Rocky using the chair, but Mike Chioda took it away and he received a clothesline. In the ring, Rocky's trying to fight back, but he ended up getting shoved into the ref, but this wasn't enough to stop him as the Great One hit the spine on a pine. Both men recover, and Hogan's locked in a sharpshooter. Ref's still down, but this didn't mean Hogan was tapping. He refused to give up and ended up reaching the ropes, but Rock dragged him back to the middle of the ring, and he's finally tapping. This clearly frustrated Rocky. Add to the fact the fans were booing him, Yeah, it was bad. Hogan low blows him and boom, he hits the rock bottom. 1, 2, no, that ain't it. The ref's too dizzy at this point, so Hogan brings in a belt and whoops Rock's ass. But despite all this, the Great One managed to DDT Hollywood, take a page out of his book, and heal it up. So now Rock's the de facto villain. This leads to the rock bottom. 1, 2, he kicked out. Rock couldn't believe it because Hulk Hogan was hulking it up and Toronto was unglued. He pointed at him, the U, the little boot, and the leg drop. 1, 2, Rock kicked out. Oh, man. Since that's not enough, Hogan delivered a couple of rights before going for the boot again. The leg drop wasn't to be until the Rock catched him with a rock bottom. He knew Hogan was going to kick out, so he decides to do it again, but it's still not enough in his eyes, so he kipped up and hit the most electrifying move in sports entertainment that day. The People's Elbow. 1, 2, 3. Absolutely incredible. It was a match for the ages. The guys, before the bell even rang, reeled you in for a roller coaster ride that nobody will forget. Truly a remarkable and legendary WrestleMania match. Rock knew his role this time around, pun intended, and he knew that the fans were going crazy for Hollywood, so he improvised. It lived up to the hype and then some, and I personally think it's for the better we got this instead of Austin Hogan. Austin wasn't in form, and I don't think him taking the L would have been good to see. After the match, Hollywood offered his hand out. Rock was skeptical but ended up giving in. The NWO were pissed because of this and they ended up attacking, but Rock made the save. They fended off the outsiders. JR was as confused as anybody, another great moment there, and as Hogan's exiting the ring, Rock pulls him back in and shows that he's a huge mark for Hulkamania. Hulk finally embraces the love from the crowd. Rock was literally playing mascot at this point. Just look at that guy. But yeah, there will never be a match like this. Cena versus Rock was definitely better if you look at it like from bell to bell. This one, it just had something even more special to it. Like, Cena Rock is very special to me. It's one of my top 10 favorite WrestleMania matches. This one, there was just something else about it. It was like capturing lightning in a bottle. It was the most electrifying match in WrestleMania history, probably. It wasn't about how many moves they could hit. All they needed to do was pose and do their signature moves. That's all, and that was enough here. In a Q&A video last year, The Rock spoke about this iconic match in the moment he gave Hogan the green light to be the good guy. I quote, "What that decision did, it gave 68,000 people the runway and the platform to not be conflicted in that moment. They went, oh, and you can hear 68,000 people go, ah, because what it did immediately identified. Great. Rock's the bad guy, Hulk Hogan is the good guy. It's okay that I cheer for Hulk Hogan because of how Rock just reacted." In another interview, immediately after the match on WWF.com, The Rock described this match to be his greatest moment. "This is by far the greatest night in the history of my career," Rock told WWF.com. "In this industry, my main objective was to be the absolute best, period. And what Hogan did for me tonight, I can't thank him enough." Rock says that performing in front of almost 70,000 fans, most of whom were on their feet and screaming for the entire bout, was a moment he won't soon forget. "It's the greatest feeling, period," he said. "I dare say it will never be duplicated." You think about 70,000 people, non-stop screaming for almost 40 minutes, it's a testament to their passion. The People's Champion admits that he was surprised that the crowd was booing him for a bit, but adds that he was confident that it wouldn't last for long. "I love the fact that they're so passionate," he said. "They show me their passion when they cheer me, and they show their passion when they boo me. What I love about it is that I had the confidence in my relationship with the fans that I could turn to them and say, continue to boo me because I'm going to continue to entertain you, and for that I'm so thankful for them." I'd like to end this interview just by saying I can't thank Hulk Hogan enough for what he did for me. Wow, it's just mesmerizing. People say, oh, if you put it on mute, the match sucks. Well, why in the hell would I do that? It's kind of unnecessary, and while I agree with you, the match itself ain't that good on mute. The crowd really added greatly, and watching on mute is a huge missed opportunity. Like, you'd be missing out on a hell of a lot of stuff if you mute it. I never watched a match on mute before in my life, and it doesn't make sense. I mean, there is one match you should watch on mute, and that is Rollins vs. Ziggler, but regarding this, you just have to appreciate it for what it is. Also, The Rock didn't forget about Toronto booing him. That's one thing to know. He didn't forget that the Mother Canuckers booed him. I just gotta mention that. But yeah, nothing can follow this. They showed the Big Show hanging out at Access, which is kind of sad. And in the arena, Howard Finkel announced a Sky Dome attendance record. WWE really loves those. The next match was a triple threat match for the WWF Women's Championship. Poor ladies. Jazz defends the gold against early 2000s fashion icon Lita and Toronto's own Trish Stratus. It's funny hearing JR screw up the name of Lita's song. But anyways, they go at it quickly while Trish is making her entrance. They double team Jazz, who, as you know, wasn't backing down. She managed to dominate both women, double arm suplex, a spin kick to Trish. Crowd wasn't that loud, and Lita on the ring. It's the head scissors, blue thunderbomb like powerbomb. Trish runs back in, takes a crossbody, but manages to roll around. It was really anybody's match. At one point, Trish hit a beta chick kick before going for the bulldog. Jazz breaks the fall, and boom, splash. Trish takes a fisherman. Lita had to kick Jazz in order to prevent the finish. Jazz goes for a slam and Trish counters into the reverse DDT. Those two have a little moment, knock down Jazz, and it's on. Trish took a weird bump and Lita hit the twist of fate on the champion, and the moonsault kind of worked, but Trish put her legs up, went for a roll-up that for a quarter of a second got me believing it was it. They bump into each other and the crowd chants, "We want puppies." Jazz is thrown to the outside and Trish splits her legs. Good God almighty, that was insane. Lita tries going for something when Trish returns a favor. Jazz pushes her away and hits a fisherman's buster that looked and sounded rough as hell. 1, 2, 3. That was ugly. Not in a bad way. It was clear the match was going to cool down the crowd, but in terms of entertainment, at least for me, it was decent. Trish was the hometown hero, but it took a while for her to get that shiny moment. Jazz looks strong as hell, and I really think she should be mentioned more when they talk about the women of the past. Yeah, if she lost here, it would have halted her momentum, I guess. In the back, Christian's flaunting that thing in his hand when Maven comes in and rolls him up, steals his title, and most importantly, his cab. Christian throws a fit once again, and it was time for the main event. Triple H challenges Stephanie McMahon's lackey, the undisputed World Wrestling Federation champion himself, Chris Jericho. So the build-up for this was something. It was mostly revolving Triple H and Stephanie's marriage. Hell, even a dog was much more important to the build-up of this damn match than Chris freaking Jericho.
And I had to come out here in this cold and take Triple H's dog for a walk. The game's dog.
The guy who in my eyes is top 10. Top 10 all time. The dog was much more important than him in the build to this match. Like, come on. It's really annoying to see, and many of us think for a fact that the title reign was botched. He was second fiddle to everyone, and just looking at him here, he just didn't belong in the main event of WrestleMania, honestly. Drowning Pool performed the game, which was featured on the new WWF album at the time, and Chris Jericho had a cool-ass jacket, and of course, Stephanie was there with him. The build-up needed more of Jericho and less of Stephanie, honestly. It needed to be much more interesting. Triple H was jacked as hell, and the story of the match was his leg. Collar and elbow tie up in the corner. Jericho was really trying to throw the game off his game, and the commentary team were making him seem like a big underdog. He started taking control, but his instincts got the best of him, and the Harley Race knee did some damage to himself. Also, I gotta mention this right now, but Bret Hart was actually asked to officiate this match. Like, that would have drawn even more attention away from the competitors, right? Anyways, Jericho delivered several kicks to the injured thigh, a chop block, and the game was in pain. Triple H takes him down and delivers the rights before targeting Y2J's leg, and he suddenly begins going after it. You know, the tables were turned. Stephanie was starting to get concerned, and the game goes for the figure four. Ex-wife gets involved and ends up taking a colossal tackle from her business partner. Triple H was trying to go for the pedigree, but Jericho hits the missile dropkick, and again, the focus was back on the knee. Even Stephanie got a shot in. In the ring, Chris Jericho went back to work, bending that knee, applying excruciating pain to the game, and Stephanie again slaps him. Jericho goes for the figure four on the post, and he still had fight in him, but all it took Jericho was one little touch to that loose knee. Neckbreaker puts the stop to the onslaught on the knee. Nice clothesline from the game leads to a near fall, but despite all this, the knee was still a huge red target. He makes up for that weird spine buster. I like the selling for it. A rough Irish whip from Chris Jericho sends Triple H to the outside, and the champ decides to clear the desk. The walls wasn't to be, but Jericho quickly righted the ship by throwing the challenger over through the other table. In the ring, Jericho at the lion saw with the game kicked out. Crowd didn't really react to it though. Jericho makes a little mistake, and it was time for the pedigree. Nope. Y2J locks in the walls. Stephanie was rubbing it in. Triple H was screaming in agony, but he had enough wherewithal to reach the ropes. Then Stephanie distracts the ref, so Chris brings in a chair, and it would end up being his wrongdoing as the game DDT'd him right on it. Hebner, meanwhile, shoved the billion-dollar princess. She enters the ring and ends up taking a pedigree. Crowd cheered, of course. Jericho blasts him with a chair that sounded like a gunshot. 1, 2, he kicked out. So Y2J attempts to go for the pedigree. That doesn't work, and he gets catapulted to the top rope. He runs straight into a kick to the gut. Fans stand up, and boom, pedigree. 1, 2, 3. Well, that was the loudest the crowd's been during the match. It wasn't bad. Dare I say it was good. Could it have been better? Yes. The build-up really screwed it over. It was a decent story with the game's leg being worked on, but it was a foregone conclusion, and that's the fact that Hogan and Rock sucked out all the energy in the fans. Yeah, it was a bad idea to main event. I mean, if you look past this, it's really one of the more underrated WrestleMania main events. Like I said, it's hard to look past that. In an interview with Inside the Ropes, Chris Jericho elaborated on the main event. And I quote, "Let's be honest, it was a main event in the fact that it was on last, but the main event of the show was Hogan and Rock, and I knew it," Jericho admitted. And it was actually most of the people pitching to have their match on last. I was pitching for Triple H and I not to go on last because, like I said, how do you follow Hogan and Rock? And Triple H, and probably rightfully so, was fighting for the title match to be last, but we couldn't follow it. You could just see the air go out of the room. That's a match, I've never watched it back. I remember being kind of disappointed in it. Main event WrestleMania? Just because you're on last doesn't make you the main event, but still, we were on last, and I could say that I still have the card they gave out with the programs. It was an old school card that had all the matches, WrestleMania main event, Jericho versus Triple H. With my legacy established and some people saying that Jericho is the GOAT and all this other stuff at the time, I was the first undisputed champion. That was the end of the line. It took me 7 years to win the title back again, and that run with the undisputed championship, to win it was great, but the whole run with it was terrible for me, in my opinion. It was more of a forgotten thing, so the build-up for the WrestleMania match wasn't great. The positioning of the match wasn't great, in my opinion. The match wasn't great, but I can say I was in the main event of WrestleMania, so there you go. You know, I'm personally glad Y2J got his main event, so there's that. You know, he's an all-time great, and it would have been a shame if he never got to main event it. But I do find it funny how he was paid a high five-figure sum, whereas Triple H made about 8 times that much. He got angry and let management know about it. Vince ended up cutting him a check for a sum that was even more than what Chris expected himself. But overall, WrestleMania X8 was good for me. Before even making the video, I had doubts on whether or not I'd fit in my top 10 WrestleManias, you know. It's always been a favorite of mine ever since I was a kid. And watching it again affirmed that thought. My least favorite match is a tag. Some of it was good, but for the most part, it was there. It was just there. The women were placed in an unfortunate place. Opener was never talked about. Undertaker and Flair was an old school battle that brought a smile to my face. Nature Boy showed that he still got it. Austin's positioning in the card was really baffling. You know, he was a top guy, yet they had him face an unmotivated Scott Hall. A Scott Hall that had his own personal demons to deal with. Hogan and Rock is everything you can want from it. Truly a legendary affair. And there's not many matches that reach that level of acclaim. It was simply lightning in a bottle. As for the main event, good match, wrong placing on the card. It should have been the main event, honestly. It didn't even have the most hype heading into it. It was a good match. Could have been better. Yes, Jericho and Triple H had way better matches in the past, so there's that. In general, WrestleMania 18, like I said, it didn't reach the level of 17. It's like WrestleMania 17 2.0 for me, though. Like, the lighting, the vibe, it kind of reminds me of WrestleMania 17. It's like it's a little brother or something. At least that's how I see things. I enjoyed the event, but other than Hogan and Rock, there's nothing special there. Like, the matches, they were good, but they weren't WrestleMania quality. They didn't have that WrestleMania feeling to them. I'm pretty sure a bunch of these matches happened on Raw after WrestleMania. What'd you guys think of WrestleMania 18? Please comment down below. And that's it for this video. Make sure you hit a rock bottom on the like button and press the pedigree on the subscribe button. Peace. I'm out.